So can sound controversial, but I'm going to say it. Small teams always fail. A lot of people say, wait, what do you mean? There's small teams everywhere. And I do feel that small teams always fail. We see that consistently with our company when our new clients come to us. They're in a position of failing. It's just a matter of when. And I want to get very quickly into why that is. In order to do that, I need to be able to show you our chart. And you can see on this chart right here, the person at the top with the flag, that's the leader, the owner of the team. And then you can see the amount of production initially with a team. The primary breadwinner is bringing in most of the sales of the team. And then they've got team members down here that are bringing in a much lower percentage. And then as those other agents, maybe we get a few more agents, maybe they start selling more, they start to increase in production. The whole goal here is that the leader of the team is not going to have to sell as much and carry the weight of the team for much further, right? And then they can slowly start stepping further and maybe ultimately completely out of production eventually. And as the team's production grows, they will sell more. The problem is this little gray shaded area in the middle, I refer to that as the death zone. This is where most teams fail very quickly. That could be very different depending on where teams are in the country, but usually it's somewhere between 80 and 150 units is what we've seen if we go with the median home price. And the reason for that is simple. When you're in the death zone here, that's typically when the team leader is now not only making more income, they're actually doing two jobs at once because that team leader is still selling at a very high level. They have to. And they're also having to be a leader at the same time. They're having to recruit, they're having to retain, they're having to train, they're having to onboard. So they're actually doing two jobs at once. And when that starts to happen, lots of cultural problems start to happen. The leader gets resentful, the leader does not have time to manage all the problems of their agents. They start to resent the agents for not doing what they've told. They don't have time to recruit. They start telling themselves they don't need to recruit. They start saying things, I'm not going to recruit until I handle my existing agents. All of those things start to happen. Those are all excuses, limiting beliefs that actually stop growth. And that's why small teams ultimately fail. The benefits of getting through that death zone and continuing to grow are just tremendous. You'll start to see it. Let's say a team gets up over 20 agents, okay? At that point in time, we start to see agents actually having to push less and a pull starts to happen to the team. In other words, we're not having to go out and have as many recruiting appointments. Why? Agents just start joining the team. And a big reason of that is if we have more agents, it actually creates diversity. And I know diversity is a polarizing term out in the political world, and I'm not referring to that type of diversity. I'm talking about all types of diversity. For example, if you have a team that's chock full of women, you're going to have a very hard time getting someone to be that first adopter man that wants to join in that team photo. It just happens that way. Should it be that way? I don't know. The point of the matter is we've seen it happen time and time again. And vice versa. You have a bunch of men. Do you really want to be the first woman that joins that team? You start to look like what your small team creates. Same thing's true with type of lead generation. You see a lot of prospecting teams out there working the phones, generating business. That's great. But if you get that stigma amongst the agents, you're not going to be able to attract referral-based agents. They just won't. And vice versa. If you're a referral-based agent where you aren't working the phones, providing accountability, trying to get business from new lead sources from people you don't yet know, you're going to have a hard time attracting the agents that need to do that or want to do that. Okay. Same can be true with young and experienced. You'll see that a lot. You got a bunch of young agents on your team that are just hustling and hungry to generate business. You're going to have a hard time attracting experienced agents. Vice versa on that too. You'll start to see the bigger we get, it just becomes more inviting to a larger percentage of the agent population if we can just get out of that small team niche area. Not to mention, you open yourself up to a tremendous amount of other income sources. Once we start getting bigger, now all of a sudden you're a big deal. You got 20 agents and you're producing up to 100 million or more. all of a sudden you can demand things, right? You can start getting mortgage marketing service agreements that pay you $5,000 or $10,000 a month. You can start a mortgage JV, joint venture with a mortgage company to earn even more income. You can generate enough production from the buyer's sides where you can actually double your net income from mortgage, and other things like title companies can be open, property management companies can be open, insurance companies can be open. Now you need leaders to do those things. You can attract more talented local real estate leaders to run those things for you and provide additional sources of income for them as well too, so that they aren't always having to sell for everything they get. And all of a sudden your big organization grows. Not to mention brokers fight over you to both recruit you and keep you. So they will reduce the amount you pay. So all of a sudden your costs go down. But all of that happens if we can just grow through the death zone. And the way I look at the death zone, it's for small real estate teams, it's like a long line of hot coals, right? You can start walking across it, but if you walk across those hot coals slowly, it's going to burn your feet. And eventually you're going to get stuck in the middle because you're so frustrated. You lose 3 or 4 agents and you're back to ground zero. You lose one admin assistant and all of a sudden your world gets turned upside down. You don't have a deep bench anywhere yet. Whereas if you're a 20 agent team and you lose 3 or 4 people because they're mad and in a huff or something and they all want to leave together, you won't even feel it. No one will notice it. But boy, you get embarrassed when you lose your whole team or 2/3 of your team. Then all of a sudden you're on those hot coals and you're stuck, or you go through one winter and you don't have a lot of production, whether it be because of your team, the market, or what have you. You're stuck on those hot coals and it burns your feet. So what ends up happening is they fail because they start moving backwards. Boy, it would just be better if I just protected my profit margin and just went back into solo agent production. And quite frankly, I don't disagree with them. If you're not going to run across those coals fast and get to all those wonderful benefits that I just explained earlier, I would go back. The last thing you want to do is be stuck in the death zone. You're going to make the same amount of money and work twice as hard by still being a high producing agent and also the manager of this real estate team that you need to grow. So that's twice as much work for roughly the same amount of money. Oftentimes they get too excited about just giving away their buy sides. Yeah, but you make it up by all the stresses of being a leader of a small real estate team. So you have to move across the hot coals quickly to get to those other things and never lose sight of what's on the other side, because that's the big money that gets you out of production. Now you're making a lot more income and working a ton, if not totally less. So that's the important thing to remember. We can't lose sight of the finish line on the other side of the hot coals.